So the next is the cost of the nut, and say by default it is 50 rupees or so. You can also set this align before previous attribute decision so that it gets aligned automatically instead of inserting it. So now this once it is done, and then click on close block editor, a prompt shows that whether this should be saved to the existing block. So the idea is all the attribute definitions should be linked to this block, and hence yes, save the changes and exit. So now we'll go and insert the block again. So this is the block that we have created, and once we're clicking enter, you can see that the attribute edit option pops up, and you can see that these are the different attributes that we had entered. So these are the prompts, and then what are the values to it is what is displayed here. So suppose if you go ahead with the same default prompt value and then click on OK, you can see that for this hex nut, this is the value that has been displayed. So this, instead of dimensioning or giving out a note, we are linking this block with its default attributes so that it will help us to edit and associate with the different blocks, the various varieties of the block. We can have different variations but still modify and edit it. So this is the advantage of the attribute definition. So once you double click on this the attribute definition, here again you can see that for each and every attribute, what is the tag, prompt and value, and what block it has associated to it, and what are the textual options, and the again assignment of layer options. So by this we can optimize the view and edit the values of the different blocks. So this is about the attribute definitions. So now just before proceeding to the other block editor functions, you'll also see, suppose if you do not want to display this, then you can go for the attribute display function. So this is a system variable. So with this we can turn on or off the attribute visibility. If you click on off, so the default attributes get hidden. So this is about the attribute display and definition. So let us go back into this block edit. So we had seen the attribute definition function. Now let us see what are the other action parameters that are called for. So we'll look into the floating tab as well as the action parameters tab and see how it varies. So this constraint we had already covered, and this parameter set is what we are going to look at now. So these parameters will help us to define the custom properties for the block reference. For example, if we are going to add a point parameter or any other parameter of the current dynamic block, then through it we can define different actions on it. So this is all applied to the dynamic block settings, and hence they can be instantly modified as per the requirement using the same block definition. So we have different parameter types. So this is the point type. So when you select the point type, you get a grip as a standard grip. Once you click in here, you can see this. The position is applied to this point, so that this you can see a square grip applied here. So this is a standard grip. So what are the actions that we can associate it with this is we can move it or stretch based on this position. That is, we are assigning this point to this block reference so that it can be manipulated for moving or stretching. So likewise, each and every point, every parameter set can be used to add an action to the dynamic block addition. And always we have to associate the action with a parameter, a key point on the parameter on the geometry. So a key point is the point on a parameter that drives its associated action when edited. So it means that this point we have associated to this key position. So this is what is going to control the action of it. So in parameter set, the next is the linear move. So once you click on this linear move and then suppose we click on here, and then we allow this is the distance that we have keep. So you can see that we have got an arrow option. So with this arrow, we can use it for linear grip movement. That is, we can use this for moving, scaling, stretching, and then also array type. So next here we have the linear array. So what we've done is the move option. Suppose if we want to create an array, then we can set this as the array. So there are two different parameters that we set. One is the linear move and the other is the linear array. So likewise we have the linear stretch pair and then polar move, polar stretch, polar array, polar move array. So this is how you can vary the options. So we have different categories. That is, we have the point category, linear category, polar category. The subcategory will be the move, stretch, array. So based on the different combinations, we can enact the parameters. We look into the actions block one by one, and also we have the parameters. So you can see that the parameter sets is a combination of the actions and the parameters. So in parameters again you have the point, linear, polar, xy coordinate, rotation, flip, visibility, lookup, and the base point. So again in point it's used to modify it based on move or stretch. Linear again it can be used to have a global control on the move, scale, stretch or array. Whereas in polar we can take it in a standard grip type to use it for move, scale, stretch, polar, stretch and array. In XY again it's a array based one. Here rotation, straightforward rotation and alignment. With this we can modify the alignment parameters to it and then the flipping of it. So now we'll use an example to see the visibility use case, so that might be helpful for us to to apply for different applications. So towards this, let us look into how to create first and third angle project symbols using the visibility parameters. So we'll do one thing. So we'll just draw the first and the second angle parameters. So the first, now let's draw the second using mirror. now we are drawn the first and the we'll just flip it out. And also we'll draw the center lines. So now we'll move this object and then create an overlap. And also we'll move them a little close by. So the idea here is we are going to use either of these images to switch between the first and third angle projections using the visibility command. So that's what we've done. We have duplicated these two images and then overlapped it, and now we're going to create as a separate block so that it can be edited and modified in the block editor. So we'll create a block. So let us consider this as the base point, and entire thing are the objects, and make it annotated. First, third angle projection symbol. That is as a description, and click on OK. So now we have got the editing option here. So now what we are going to do is we're going to use the visibility states in order to assign two visibility states, one for the first angle and second for the third angle. So this visibility state is available here, but in order to make it available, so what we have to do is we have to assign this parameter called as a visibility parameter. So we'll insert this visibility parameter. So let us say that the parameter point, action point, is going to be placed here, and you can see that the visibility point has been inserted. So next you can choose the visibility state option. So here we can insert the visibility states that we want to do. So let us rename the first visibility state as the first angle, and then add a new visibility state as the third angle. So once done, now let us modify it. So now we have selected the first angle as the current state. Now let's select this third angle symbol and then make it invisible. So after selecting these objects, click on this, that is to make them invisible. So you can see that this is going to be the first angle of projection. So likewise, once you select the third angle, now you select the objects that are going to be invisible, that is the first angle of projection symbol should be invisible. So we can save the block and then close the block editor. So upon selecting this symbol, you can see that on this block we have the visibility. So now we can select what is the visibility that we need to do. Okay, so we had left out this inner circle, so let us go and edit it again. So again, in this first angle visibility, this should be invisible. So let us select and make it invisible, and then now in the third angle of projection, this should be invisible. So now we apply the changes and close the block editor. So now we can see that, so this is the first angle projection, and then this is the third angle of projection. So now with this you can quickly insert the different requirements into your block settings directly using the visibility setting. So this is one such example of the dynamic block settings that we can use. So as seen earlier in the dynamic block, we have different options to flip, scale, switch, move, or do an array. All these things can be done using this powerful functionality of the dynamic blocks. So once you have completed all the block settings, block editing, all these things, now you can write this block as a separate drawing files that we have seen earlier. So now this is again a powerful functionality so that we can use it, save it as a separate drawing, and reuse it as many as times that are possible when it's required. So this is about the overall description about the block functionality. So next what we are going to see is the powerful functionality of AutoCAD, that is layers. So layers are heavily useful when you have to group the information in a drawing by either its function or by its characteristics. So that, or the same, this is a 2D drawing. So this is a friction plate slab. So in this drawing, so you can see that there are different types of line properties and info and drawing that are available. So you can store those information in separate layers in the same drawing. So how will it be useful is that you can manipulate the specific layer that you want while you hide out the other. For example, after constructing this drawing and you are passing down this drawing to the next stage of the processing. In that case, suppose if they have to work only on the annotation elements and not on the drawing here, then they can hide this drawing entirely and then look only on the annotation. Suppose if you are modifying the title block, one of the designers have to modify the title block or put in a revision, then he can focus only on that and hide the rest others so that he does not misplace or misenter some information. So these layers is kind of equivalent to the overlays that we will be using in the paper-based drawing. It means that we overlay one set of image over the other. So these are going to be the primary organization tool for us in the drawing. So we repeat, this layers is to group information by function and to enforce the line type, color and other standards. So we'll look into how this layers can be used and how it can be categorized. So you can invoke the layer command by typing layer. So once you do that, you'll get a pop-up menu. Here this is the layer properties manager. So you can see that it shows how many layers are already defined and what are the various properties in it. So you can see some symbols here. The first one is to either turn on the layer or not. The next is the freeze the layers, that is, it can be, so layer freezes means it freezes the selected layers in all the viewports that we are using, including the model tab, so that we can freeze the layers so that we can speed up zoom, pan and other operations. We can also improve the object selection performance and also reduce the regeneration time for complex drawing. That is, whatever objects that are going to be in the frozen layers will not be displayed, plotted, hidden, rendered or regenerated. So that taken away from the drawing that you need to do. So the freeze we have to apply to the layers that we want to have it totally invisible for long periods of time. So that we'll look into the later stage, but this is just an overview, like what is the function of it. And next we have the locking. So if you lock the layer, then you can modify it. The next, plotting. So whether you have to choose the layer for plotting or not. So it means that certain information that are pertaining only to the drawing can be
subsequently put in those layers and may not be taken for the plotting. So which type of layers should be taken in for plotting or not? So categorically you can apply different properties to the different layers. So next we have also colors based on the drawing, so that whatever drawing is default as specified, you can modify the property as a whole, then the line type and also the line weight. So next is the transparency, that is, instead of hiding a layer, we can make it transparent so that we can still view the information, but it does not affect the other operations. So next we have the new VP freeze. So this new VP freeze freezes the selected layers in new layout viewports. For example, if you freeze the dimension layers that you created, okay, so in all the new viewports, it restricts the display of dimension from that layer, so that any newly created layout viewports will not affect the dimensions layers in the existing viewport. So that is, we can create a viewport later, so that may require the dimensions. We can override the default setting by changing the current viewport setting. So this we can see later, but maybe not in this session. So next we have the description for the entire layer. So this is how it got categorized. Then again we have the other options here to create a new layer, in the VP process that we are seeing now, and delete the layer, and finally select the layer as the current one. So initially what you can see is we have a default layer as 0. So you can't rename it. So this is here going to be the default layer. So after that is all the layers that we can add and customize. So first of all, let us right now try and create a layer that categorizes it into a different property. So here we can split the division. So what we can say is the construction lines that are drawing here. Okay, so this is not going to use in the final drawing. So first we'll store the final drawing in a separate layer, the construction lines in a separate layer, and then the dimension annotations in a separate layer. So we'll split this entire drawing into 3 layers and see how it can support us. And also maybe we can do one more thing. This final drawing, we'll categorize it. We'll name this holes as a separate layers. This the slot area as a separate one, and the external area as a separate one. This is just for our understanding how to do it. So this again, all the layer is also available here in the layer tab in the home tab ribbon. So here you get all the properties that are available in the tab. So here, so having created this construction lines, so now we'll select the construction lines that we require, right click on it, go to properties, and then assign by what layer that we have to do. So now we have said that all the properties that we have selected, okay, so now we are assigning to the layers of construction one. So now simply just going back to this original layer, and you can hide this. So now you get a prompt to state whether you have to turn off the current layer on off. So if you turn it off, you can see that the construction line layer has been turned off. This is the first and foremost application of the layers. That is, you can turn on and off the various properties that are not available required to us. But this can also have a consequence on the drawing. So here you can see that there is no referencing that is going. So we have to be extremely careful like how it has to be constructed. So in order to do this, then you have to ideally take in a angular dimension radius so that we have all the points referred correctly. So this is just to show you how it varies. So now we'll assign new layers with the dimension properties all listed. So alternatively, you can all do this by the filter command, but right now we are just selecting it manually. Okay, see here we have only these that are available. So have to create a new layer. So we'll name it as dimensions, and so now we'll make use of this select similar command. So now we have selected all the dimensions that we want to take. Now we'll assign to the dimension layer that we want to do. So these are all dimensions. So likewise, you can apply a different one. Also, suppose if you want to modify a current layer properties, that is, suppose if you want to modify the dimensions all to be in a different color, then you can do it in a single go by using this modifying of layer properties. So this is also a powerful functionality of that is you can control the group properties of that specific layer, and again we can turn whatever layers that we want to initiate printing or not. Okay, the plotting can be adjusted. Then again the line types can be modified. So this typically is the use of the layer dimensions. So you have to make sure that you use the complete functionality of the layer by applicating the different requirements. That is, you categorize them into the base functions in the describing properties. That is, you can group it into the base object, assembly objects, and then reference objects, dimensions, annotations, and so on and so forth. So these all can be construed based on the requirement that you have.
So now we'll look into the different shortcuts that are offered by Autodesk. So here, this snap, you can see that in a typical keyboard layout, what are the various one-key shortcuts that are available. So on top, you have the function keys. So the F1 as usual is the help, but from F2 to F12 is what is going to quickly help you during your drafting process. So F2 will toggle the text screen. So toggle means switching from one mode to the other. So earlier we were looking into the ortho mode of toggling. So it means that when you click on F8, it either turns on or off the ortho mode. So that's what this toggle means. So you have the toggling for object snap, 3D object snap, isoplane, dynamic UCS plane, toggling the grid mode, ortho mode, snap mode, polar mode, and object snap tracking, and dynamic input mode. So these are all just enabling or disabling the snapping. So if you instead of this shortcuts, then if you have to toggle them, then you have to invoke the command separately. For example, the object snap, then you need to invoke the osnap command and then select the checkbox wherein you have to select the snap should be on or off. Alternatively, in the command bar at the bottom, you have a toggling state, but this is the quick and straightforward method to quickly turn on and off the different modes that are required. So next, we have the QWERTY keyboard layout. So each and every letter can be used for direct functionality. For example, the C is the shortcut, one key shortcut for circle, the O is for offset, I for insert, and so on and so forth. So you can have a look at all the one key shortcuts that you can quickly invoke the commands instead of typing it in full. For example, the move command, MO will invoke the move, and also AutoCAD will try to autofill the command that you enter, but rather if you type in M only, it will select the move command. So this is the powerful usage of the one key shortcuts. So next, we have the toggles and screen management buttons. So here, using the control options, we have a combination of control plus numerical and control plus alphabets. So based on this, we can toggle using different modes. And for opening up the different screens, that you have the control plus numerical option. For example, if you want to open up the quick calculator, then control plus 8 will help you. And likewise, in order to switch between the different drawings, instead of selecting them manually, you can use the control shift tab, control page up, page down to circulate between the tabs that are available in the drawing. So next again, the drawing moves that we saw in the one key shortcut, and again in workflow for quick copy paste. So these are all an overall workflow. Inside the drawing we still have the move option or cut option, undo option, all these things, but still we can use this shortcuts to quickly use the workflow management. So next we have different hotkeys. So right from starting alphabet A to Z, we have different commands that we have looked at. So in this session we had looked at the command as an attribute definition. So that can be called upon only using the 3-letter ATT. And likewise for block, we can just use for B for creating a block. For closing, we can use for BC, and for editing BE. And for circle, as we look again is C, for chamfer CHA, and for copy CO, and so forth. So likewise, you have different usage of this, the combination of these hotkeys that can quickly invoke it. So all these are also available on the Autodesk site. You can also download them to have a quick reference. So quickly going through, so in D, we have majority referring to the dimension settings or the dimension options. So D for the dimension styles, and then the arc dimensions, the jog dimensions, and then the dimension text. So these are all in the D command. And in E to K, you have the different options. For example, you have the E for erasing, and then H for hatching, I for inserting the block, or J for joining the objects of different types, and in L is the line, and then we have the for M for move, O for offset, P for pan, PE for polyline edit, and QP for quick properties. So SC for scale, RO for rotate, and so finally in the last section we have X for explode, and then TR for trim, T for multi-line text. So these are the different hotkeys that are available in AutoCAD to quickly invoke the command and work upon. So to conclude on this week's session, so what we had covered was we looked into the different filtering techniques. So how to use the quick select, how to use the select similar commands, and then how to use the filter command to write in custom codes to select all the objects that satisfies the condition that we need and save as a separate filter. And next in blocks, we looked into how to create a block and then how to assign the constraints so that even during editing it doesn't affect the overall the geometric relation between the different features in that object. And then we looked into how to give dimension constraints so that they can be modified based on the different key inputs, and only specifying one or two major inputs by which all other dimensions are relatively constrained to that major input. Then we looked into the dynamic block settings, so how those blocks can be dynamically altered. We looked into different powerful functionality called as a visibility, the move, rotate functions using the parameter sets, actions and parameters. And also we looked into how to create attribute definitions so that it can be used as an display tag for the designer to select or use your block and then look into the attributes and modify it based on their requirements. And next we looked into different altering techniques using layers, so that is assigning separate groups of functions based on the filters that we had already done to assign them as layers so that all the manipulating properties can be cross applied to the layers. So in general practice, it's always recommended to have multiple layers so that it can be easily viewed upon and manipulated by all the designers that you have. So typically, the drafter who uses single layer is simply viewed as an inexperienced one. And next, we looked into different shortcuts techniques that AutoCAD offers us to quickly invoke those menus. So this concludes the different productivity enhancement techniques that we had looked into. And we had one additional technique called as the macro. So that we'll look into detail in the upcoming sessions.